Hello and welcome to the Libraries Unlimited podcast. Today we talk to Mark Norman in Crediton about the literary festival that they have there. Gemma from Bovey Tracey does a lightning review, and we also speak to Bideford about their Plantation of Poems. And Jez tells us all about Naxos, a vast music resource, in an episode we like to call Tell Me Something I Don't Know. Hi Callum, how are you?
I'm good, Lee. How are you? Happy National Smiles Month, Lee.
Yes, we're both smiling, but no one can really see that we're smiling. Keep smiling.
Yeah, we're very much smiling. I hope you've been brushing your teeth twice a day. I have been brushing my teeth twice a day.
Good. Go onto their website, nationalsmilemonth.org. There's tons of things you can do, loads of activities, downloads, that sort of thing. And we're kind of pushing this a little bit. So keep an eye on the Facebook page of St. Thomas Library, because you might just see me singing a song with the word smile in it.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So
you didn't know that was coming, did you?
I'll meet you there, Lee. Yeah, I can't wait. Hey, look, I'll tell you what else is going to make you smile. I don't know whether you saw this the other day, but Exeter Library, the library that I work at, my library, put together this, what I thought was a really nice video, 3 minutes long, just from the staff. All of the staff got involved just to say hello to the customers and reassure them that the future is going to be bright, and we're really looking forward to getting back into the building. Did you see it by any chance?
No, I will go and have a look. How do I find it, Callum?
So, well, I'm glad you asked, Lee. It's on Exeter Library Facebook page or the YouTube channel as well. It's only 3 minutes long. In fact, I think it's 2 minutes 57. So it's really worth a watch. It's really nice. You get to see all of Exeter Library staff and what they look like recording on Zoom.
Oh, do you know what? That will be really lovely, actually, because from a personal point of view, I worked with quite a few people up there as well in the past, so it'd be really lovely to see everybody again. But I think that's such a beautiful gesture as well. That's really encouraging me to go back to my teams and see if they'll do that as well. It's a really good idea. I mean, we do a lot of live streams. People do tend to see us on our Facebook pages,
I've seen those,
story
yeah.
times and things like that.
Yeah, you do like a Saturday roundup, is that right, on the Saturday?
Oh, yeah, we do a Saturday roundup, 10:30 every Saturday, it goes live, and we're talking about our libraries, but we're really incorporating everything that's going on, so we're doing a bit of a roundup for Devon libraries, to be honest.
It was such a good idea that Exeter Library have decided to steal it, and the centre manager did a kind of like a roundup last Thursday, and I'm doing a roundup this Thursday as well on Facebook, so fantastic. A good idea is yeah, it was a good idea. We all liked it so much.
Totally.
Listen,
totally,
Lee, do you want to get into some news? We got some news from other libraries. Do you want to hear some?
Let's hear the news.
Hello. On Saturday, June the 6th, we're taking the popular and growing Crediton Literary Festival online. As a virtual event, there are no geographic boundaries, and so everyone is welcome to attend any of the free talks which we're putting on. The event is headlined at 2:30 p.m. by best-selling author Veronica Henry, discussing her new book. Along with that, there's a panel of 3 crime and thriller authors: fiction, genealogy, history, poetry, and more. Follow Crediton Library on Facebook or Twitter to find the poster and more details. To book your free places, please email crediton.library@librariesunlimited.org.uk. We look forward to welcoming you.
Lee, I was doing a bit of research for this show, and I found out about something called the Torquay ReadAthon, but they've had to cancel their main event this year, obviously for obvious reasons. But they've moved it all online, and they've managed to get like 14 authors to read their books, read their stories, and kind of do little mini videos. And they're going to be releasing them all. By the time this podcast goes out, it will have happened. It's happening on Thursday, the 26th, 7th, 8th. It's happening on Thursday, so it will have happened. But they've got 14, I think, authors coming in, doing videos and reading a bit of their stories on various Facebook pages. And it's also the day is being introduced by Neil Gaiman.
Wow.
So it's a pretty kind of major thing that they're doing. Like I say, it will have already happened by now, but they're keeping the videos up. So please go onto any of the Torquay Library Facebook pages. That's Torquay Library itself, or Brixham, or Paynton, Torquay. There'll be some amazing videos there by some amazing authors.
That is properly impressive. Neil Gaiman is, he's one of my heroes. What a great writer. Definitely going to tune in and look at those. And is it a mixture of kind of local authors then as well? Is that what we're saying?
From what I can tell, yeah, they had this huge program, an all-day thing, some local but some more kind of national. I just think it's great. I'm really looking forward to seeing how well it does, and I hope it does. I hope it does really, really well.
If you were given 3 random words, would you be able to use them to write a poem dedicated to a tree? Bideford Library has teamed up with local woodland enterprise Courage Cops Creatives to deliver the project Plantation of Poems. We wanted to create a project that connected people with nature and encouraged the writing of poetry. And the response has been overwhelming. We have had 63 requests for words and 32 poems already submitted. And thanks to the funding from Evolve, we're going to take those poems and make them into an exhibition that once lockdown has been completely lifted, the public will be invited to, so they can come to the woodland, explore the plantation, hunt for their poem and read everybody else's as well. If you want to get involved, please do. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, so that sounds really interesting. The person who's running it is a lady called Katie Lee. So if you've got any, questions or you want to get involved, please do email her. That's Katie Lee, KATY.Lee, LEE, at librariesunlimited.org.uk.
So the title of this podcast then is kind of...
Tell me something I don't know. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something that maybe you don't know about. I'm sure you do, but maybe the listeners don't. There is an offer. There's a digital offer. If you go over to on Devon Library's page, it's called Medici TV. Have you heard of this?
No, you were sort of talking about this a little bit earlier on, and I sat there pretending that I knew what you were talking about, but I've actually not heard of it. I'm sorry.
Well, it's basically the TV side of it is the fact that you have a lot of live concerts, you have a lot of pre-recorded concerts that are on offer to watch, and we're talking classical music, okay? So it is very much in the classical vein. You've got concerts, you've got operas, you've got ballets, you've got documentaries, which are fantastic, and you've even got masterclasses. So if you are hoping to become an opera singer, or you want to learn to play, very top quality piano or cello, there are free masterclasses on here.
Wow.
There's also a calendar of events. So, for instance, there's a Carnegie Hall event happening on May the 29th. Yeah, Medici TV, Medici.TV. We have the offer at the moment to a certain time. So do jump on and see if you can look up all of those before they disappear. How about yourself? You got anything you can surprise me with?
There are a couple of amazing things that happen at Exeter Library, which are really impressive. But we're going to be talking about them a little bit more detail in future episodes. The one that sticks out in my mind is something called the Fab Lab, which is this amazing space. We've got one in Exeter. There's one in Barnstaple as well, and it's essentially a high-tech creative room. So it's got like laser cutters and 3D printers. It's got all sorts of like really impressive kit. You have to be a member of the Fab Lab, but it is part of the library. And it's something that, young entrepreneurs that we've seen, creatives, people designing signs, people designing T-shirts. And we've also seen inventors going in there to 3D print their kind of like early designs and things. So it's really great. But like I said, we're going to be talking with the managers of the Exeter and Barnstaple Fab Labs in a couple of weeks.
And the great thing about its location in Exeter Library is that it's right next to the business section, isn't it?
Yes, the Business and Intellectual Property Centre, which is kind of like a partnership that we've got with the British Library. And we try to help like young business people with kind of patent ideas, how to do well on social media. So we run a series of workshops and events throughout the year that kind of promotes kind of business, I guess, intelligence. Obviously, things have had to slow down a little bit since the shutdown, but only a little bit. We're still running online workshops. My colleague Joe Lawrence is in touch with loads of sort of leading business figures in Exeter and Devon to run workshops about how to start up your own business. And one of the most recent one was about how to start up your own business, but it was tailored to ex-employees of Flybe. If you remember, they got let go relatively recently. So a gentleman came in and did a free workshop for those people. And so it's really, really good. It's like amazing stuff that we've got going on.
Yeah, all hidden gems. And on that note, talking about finding things that are new and different, Jez Winship, who is not only a fantastic librarian, he's also a great photographer, he's a folklorist, he's a podcaster, he's also an author, and he loves music. He's a massive music fan. One of the things he's discovered from our online resources is Naxos. And Naxos, if you remember all those years ago, if you're of a particular age, Naxos used to release LPs, long playing records, guys, with lots of fantastic classical concerts and recordings. But they've expanded, and there's a lot more that you can find and listen to for free on our resources links. Anyway, I'm going to let Jez tell you all about Naxos.
Hi there, my name's Jez. I am a customer service assistant at Exeter Library. For the past couple of years I've been doing a library-based radio show on Phonic FM called Up From The Stacks, which explores the music available in Exeter Library and Devon Libraries beyond, both on the main floor and in the cavernous spaces of the stacks down below. But today I'd like to talk to you about the Naxos online music library, which you can access via your Devon Library's card. I suppose it's worth pointing out initially that this is not just a library based on the Naxos label. The Naxos label is a budget classical label which has been producing many CDs over the last, decade or so, often of very high quality and going well beyond the normal classical repertoire. So it would be good if it was just that. But no, it's much more. There are actually over 940 labels represented in this online music library, with an incredible 150,000 plus discs available for you to listen to. So this is really a vast resource. It's a huge music library. And it also goes well beyond the standard classical repertoire. Record labels represented are those such as ECM, New Albion, Vergo, Hat Hut, GB Records, which is the record label run to release his own music by Gavin Bryars. There's Lyrita, the record label that for many years has specialised in publishing the music of British composers, well known and more obscure. There are the Hungaraton and Supraphone labels, the Soviet-era state-approved Hungarian and Czech labels. And for soundtracks, there are a couple of great labels, Verez Saraband and Silver Screen. And you've got your major label classical subsidiaries like Sony Classical, Warner Classical, RCA, etc. Plus perhaps the classical label par excellence, Deutsche Grammophon. So how do you get there? Well, go to the Devon Library's site. Just put Devon Libraries in your search engine and it will come up with it. When you get there, scroll right down to the bottom of the screen to the little bit that says menu down in the bottom shaded bit. Find the services link and click on this and it will take you to a list of links in blue type. Now, a short way down there, you'll find access to online reference sort resources, including Naxos Music. So click on that and you'll shift over to the online resources page, and if you scroll down there you'll soon come to Naxos Music Library. You don't need your PIN, you just put your library card number in and you're in. So I'll try and suggest a few things beyond the classical repertoire, which as I say, you probably know what you're looking for if that's what you're after. Let's start off with a composer called David Bedford. It's a good place to start because he is actually on one of the books represented on the bookstack sculpture that you've probably passed in the cafe lobby many times. Right at the top is a book called Star Clusters, Nebulae and Places in Devon. This represents a score which we have down in the stack for choir and brass. The choral parts mix cosmic nomenclature from star maps with Devon place names from maps and road signs. This reflects David Bedford's latter years spent in Devon. In fact, he did actually live in Exeter. He was associated with the worlds of rock and prog, and particularly with Mike Oldfield, the composer of Tubular Bells. And David Bedford did orchestrate an orchestral Tubular Bells performance and album. His piece Star Clusters was first released on Mike Oldfield's label, along with a piece called Song of the White Horse. And this memorably involved, at one point, members of the choir inhaling helium to hit a really high note. This playfulness extended to his work with children and to non-professional musicians, people who didn't read music. So he had a very democratic view of music. He really wanted to sort of get the joy of music across to as many people as possible. So this very much, I think, fits in with a public library ethos. After the success of Tubular Bells, David Bedford himself had quite a few albums on the Virgin label, including Star's End and Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner with a Robert Powell narration, and The Odyssey. His music reflected his love of science fiction as well. With 100 Kazoos was dedicated to the 1960s new wave science fiction writers, Roger Zelazny, Theodore Sturgeon, and my favourite, Samuel Delany. And he also wrote A City and the Stars cantata, which was inspired by Arthur C. Clarke, as was his splendidly titled piece Tentacles of the Dark Nebula. And his record Star's End was also very much influenced by Isaac Asimov. He also collaborated with Ursula Le Guin on a kind of musical piece called Rigel 9, which was released in 1985. Well, here we have quite a few David Bedford pieces available on the Naxos online library. There's a piece called Music for Albion Moonlight, with the words of his favourite poet Kenneth Patchen, and also reflecting his love of poetic titles. There's a piece called Sun Paints Rainbows on the Vast Waves. There's one called Sea and Sky and Golden Hill, and another called 12 Hours of Sunset. Incidentally, the album which has Music for Albion Moonlight on is shared with pieces by the British composer Elizabeth Lutyens, who was the daughter of the famous architect Edwin Lutyens, who built Castle Drogo in Devon, amongst many other famous buildings. Now, there are some very long pieces on here which you can listen to all in one go. These are particularly good for intense periods of work or for reading. So we've got Philip Glass's Einstein on the Beach, which goes on for about 3.5 hours, and also his Music in 12 Parts, which is a very hypnotic piece of minimalist music, which goes on for about 3.25 hours. There's the French composer Éliane Radigue's piece Occam Ocean, which is reminiscent of her very lengthy kind of electronic drone pieces, and that goes on for about 3.25 hours. Max Richter's lovely piece Sleep, which he called A Lullaby for a Frenetic World, would be the longest piece here, because in its full length, and it was recently, it goes on for 8 hours. But here we only have an album of extracts from it. There's a Morton Feldman piece called For Christian Wolf, which goes on for 3 hours. It's in Morton Feldman's kind of very spare, very minimal style, very quiet music. So really sort of good to listen to whilst you're sort of getting on with something else. For Philip Guston, his piece for the abstract artist Philip Guston goes on for a little over 4 hours. So we're getting longer here. But the prize goes to his second string quartet from the 1970s, one of his later pieces, and that goes on for 5 hours. And there was a performance of that in the Tate Modern a while back that again went on all night, and people were encouraged to bring sleeping bags and bedrolls. Feldman was made some very, very sensitive music. His music is notable for his quietude. Amusingly, he was actually a sort of loud New Yorker. So it's quite funny thinking of him during his visit to Dartington when he came to teach at the Dartington Summer School back in the day. This kind of loud New Yorker strolling through the streets of Totnes. I can imagine he could make quite an impression. Well, there's also lots of film music, and that includes the music of the great Bernard Herrmann. He was best known for his scores for Alfred Hitchcock. There's an album that specifically dwells on his fantasy film scores. So we get the exoticism of his films for Ray Harryhausen, the films. So there is his score for Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and his score for Jason and the Argonauts as well. Also, we've got his music for The Day the Earth Stood Still, a classic bit of 50s science fiction. And for that, he uses the electronic instrument, the theremin, that instrument where you don't actually sort of touch anything to make sound. You just kind of wave your hand around these aerials and make this eerie sort of trembling sound. There's his score for Fahrenheit 451 as well, another bit of science fiction with Francois Truffaut's adaptation of Ray Bradbury's novel. And also he did some great music for the Twilight Zone, the series in the late 50s and early 60s. You also get here a chance to explore his non-soundtrack work, because he was a classical composer as well, and there are some lovely pieces here, some chamber pieces like the Echoes String Quartet and Souvenir de Voyage, which have a real melancholy quality to them, and also his Moby Dick cantata, which was something that was very dear to his heart, and the Sinfonietta, which you can definitely hear there are elements he almost directly took from that to put into his Psycho score. It's definitely a piece of real dark expressionism with a kind of probing some kind of dark psychology. Shows very much the influence of Bartók. Well, what else can we explore? There's more really fascinating soundtrack stuff, and there's some stuff by the Radiophonic Workshop, the BBC's in-house electronic music alchemists, who created such amazing electronic music and effects from their cramped quarters in the Maida Vale studios in the 60s and 70s and beyond. But the names have now become legendary, and in particular Delia Derbyshire, Daphne Oram, John Baker, Brian Hodgson, Dick Mills, Paddy Kingsland, David Kane, Maddalena Fagandini and Malcolm Clark and others. And of course they're always going to be associated with Doctor Who. Delia Derbyshire's theme for Doctor Who is absolutely immortal, and you can find that here. There were two absolutely classic BBC Radiophonic Workshop LPs, the so-called Pink album from 1968, the era of tape splicing and found sounds, and the 1975 synthesizer era LP, which features the massive Delaware EMS Synthi 100 synthesizer, which apparently they had to widen the door to get through. It's a huge cupboard of a bit of machinery. Those are both available here. There's also music from the Patrick Troughton era Doctor Who episode, The Invasion, the one where you get the Cybermen striding up towards St Paul's, which has music and sounds by Don Harper and the Radiophonic Workshop's Brian Hodgson and John Baker. It includes his lovely bit of cosmic lounge music, which you might recognise because it was used as the theme for Jarvis Cocker's Sunday Service radio show on Radio 6. There's also, excitingly, well, for me, there's the soundtrack to the 1975 BBC series The Changes by Paddy Kingsland, which was an amazing series about a sudden change which means everyone irrationally turns against technology and starts smashing anything that resembles technology, and the world is suddenly sort of plunged back into a pre-technological era with tribes and rival tribes sort of gathering together in the countryside. Definitely a series that stuck with me very much, and the music evokes it wonderfully. And we go into the 80s also with Peter Howell's music for The Five Doctors and Roger Lim's music for The Box of Delights, the adaptation of John Masefield's perennial favourite, which is a seasonal Christmas fantasy with a very pagan outlook. And coming right up to date, there's also Segun Akinola's music for the Doctor Who series 11 and 12, Jodie's Doctor, which returned to underlying electronic elements, so harked back to the radiophonic glory days. There is, in fact, plenty of electronic music to explore here, so you can explore the roots of the Radiophonic Workshop and where they came from. We've got some Pierre Henry and Pierre Schaeffer doing musique concrète at the Studio SA in Paris for French Radio Diffusion Nationale, which was really pioneering stuff. And over in Cologne in Germany, in the radio studios of Nordwestdeutscher Rundfunk, we have Stockhausen and people like Herbert Eimert making very, very innovative and still startling music to modern ears with tape and tape effects. This is music which led directly on to German electronic music like Can and Kraftwerk, members of whom both studied with Stockhausen. Over in America, it wasn't so much radio stations where electronic music was made in the 50s and early 60s. There was a place called the Columbia Princeton Electronic Music Center, based at Columbia University, where people in white lab coats would go around and fill about with what was actually one of the first great synthesizers. Again, a huge cabinet-sized thing called the RCA Mark II sound synthesizer, which was quite the thing in 1957. And you got people like Vladimir Ussachevsky and Otto Luening doing their thing there. Electronic musicians do have the best names. There's some electronic music by the Greek composer with another great name, Yannis Xenakis. That's Xenakis with an X, producing electronic music like Concrete PH, which, along with Edgar Varèse's Poème Électronique, which you can also find here, was blasted out at the pavilion designed by Xenakis at Expo 58. Which you go in there basically, and through many speakers you get this kind of weird music blasting out at you, with all kinds of sort of rather surreal images being projected on the walls as well. It must have blown minds in the America of 1958 for sure. And there's some wonderful pieces when we get into the computer era in the 70s by a composer called Laurie Spiegel, an album called The Expanding Universe, which has got some just glorious bits on. And there's also some computer pieces by a composer called Paul Lansky, who was a big influence on Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead, who has cited him as a favourite composer. In fact, he's actually sampled on a track called Idiotech on the Kid A album. Another really good label here to explore is the Erased Tapes label, which is kind of... It falls under the category of modern neoclassical chamber music, which bridges the worlds of classical music, dance music, indie music, and soundtrack music, and has become sort of very accessible to a pretty large audience. It's music which is drawing on that modernist music that preceded it, but translating it into a much more accessible mode. So you have actually got kind of modern electronica and modern dance music here from a group called Rival Consoles, and that gives a link to the local Sea Change festival that's been going on in Totnes and Dartington over the last few years, run out of the wonderful Drift Records in Totnes, because Rival Consoles played there, I think, in the first one. But there have been a number of performances by artists on the Erased Tapes label at the Sea Change festival. So we've had Rival Consoles, we've had the saxophonist Daniel Thorne, and the singer Douglas Dare, both of whom performed in Totnes Church. In the Great Hall at Dartington, the medieval hall, we had Anne Muller with her overdubbed and layered cello, which was really beautiful, and a fellow called Lubomir Melnik, who plays what he terms continuous piano, this very sort of kinetic piano music, which never pauses for breath. And there's also perhaps the most popular of the Erased Tapes artists, a composer from Germany called Nils Frahm, who blends piano and electronics and chamber arrangements, and is hugely popular. Well, Nils Frahm's music can be very calming, very beneficial to your mental health, and there's lots more music here which could be very good for music for inner calm and mental well-being. In fact, I've put together a couple of mixes for just such purposes, real sort of drifting, dreaming music. I've called them drift, dream and drone music mixes, or something along those lines anyway. So there's various things here. You can go right back to early music. There's some beautiful music by the 12th century nun Hildegard of Bingen, a real Renaissance woman of her time. There's other good early music here from the Hilliard Ensemble, who performed the music of the 12th century composer Perrotin, who was composing music that just went beyond the bounds of plain chant, which was kind of very monophonic. It didn't have more than one line of music. And here we start to get lines of singing overlaying that single monophonic line. So you get the kind of chant, but with kind of almost dancing vocal lines going above it. It's very hypnotic, and it was almost, you might almost hear it was composed to resonate around the spaces of Notre Dame, which was where it was performed. There's Steve Reich's music for 18 musicians as well, a really hypnotic piece of minimalist music which unfolds over about an hour and involves percussive instruments like the vibraphone and the marimba, and just has this kind of gloriously celestial sound, I suppose you could say. We have some pioneers of ambient music as well. Harold Budd, who collaborated with Brian Eno on a number of albums. There's one of his albums here called She as a Phantom, which also has his lengthy piece called In Delius's Sleep. And Brian Eno himself, as interpreted by the Bang on a Can group of modern musicians. There's their version of his ambient classic Music for Airports, which is absolutely wonderful. So all these are great for inducing a sort of hypnotic state. You can use them for meditation. You can use them to aid your concentration if you're working for a long period of time. You can put them on while you're trying to go to sleep. Really, in some cases, that would probably work quite well. But they're all sort of very good, I would say, for your mental well-being. They have a very beneficial effect. They certainly have had on me. So, well, there's such a lot to explore here. If you're interested in music, it's a wonderful resource for you to have a look around, and well, hopefully you'll be able to explore entire new worlds that you didn't know about before. So I highly recommend that you have an explore of the Naxos Music Library by your Devon Library's card. Lend an ear and enjoy.
So there we go. That was Jez talking about Naxos. Interesting.
Yeah, well, I work with Jez at Exeter Library, and you weren't lying about how good of a librarian he is. His cultural knowledge is quite scary. I feel like he may have read every book and listened to every piece of music and watched every film. He's definitely a knowledge. So he's somebody amazing to have on the staff. But listen, Lee, it's now time for our famous segment.
It's time for the Lightning Review.
So it's Lightning Book Review time, and today we've got a very special guest. She is the supervisor for Bovey Tracey Library. It's Gemma Pegg. Welcome, Gemma. How are you doing?
Thank you. Hello, I am fabulous. How are you?
I'm good. Now, you are the supervisor from Bovey Tracey. How are you guys finding the lockdown? Are you doing anything new, anything exciting?
We're doing everything new because we don't do as much on Facebook as some of the other libraries. So we're doing Bounce and Rhyme on a Friday morning, which is brilliant. I do a very good live story time at 2:00 on a Thursday. And we've been doing craft videos on Wednesdays with my kids.
With you, I've seen a couple of them. They're not bad. They're pretty good.
They're a bit challenging.
Yeah. So, but enough of all that. Mm-hmm. We're here for something very important. We're here for the Lightning Book Review. Now, do you know the rules? You know what you're doing?
I know the rules. I know what we're doing.
So you've got 1 minute to review a randomly selected book from your borrower history.
Okay.
Try your hardest, try your best. So the book that I would like you to review today is This Little Dark Place by A.S. Hatch.
Oh, I just read that. Brilliant. I can remember that. That was awesome. It is about a guy, can't remember his name, who his girlfriend walks out on him, his mum dies, and he inherits a little cottage, which is all a bit creepy, and he has been writing to a woman in jail. This is very garbled, sorry. And basically the woman from jail gets released from jail, comes to track him down, and lots of strange things happen. And it's really creepy, and it's really dark, and it's really intense. And there was quite a clever little twist at the end. And yeah, really enjoyed that one. I picked it up because it was new and no one had had it, so I snuck it home. And yeah, it was really good. The girlfriend comes back, the prison girl is around, this guy's all a bit confused and lost. Some strange things happen, but it is very deep, very intense, and very brooding and sinister. So that was a good read. I enjoyed that a lot. Ooh, 3 seconds to go. Check me out.
It's over. It's over.
Yay. I was trying to tell you everything that happened, but a minute's not very long, and I'm a bit, it's all a bit stream of consciousness. So
well, that's the point. The point is to get a visceral gut reaction to a book that you've read. I thought you did very, very well. That was The Little Dark Place by A.S. Hatch. Gemma, thank you very much for coming.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and enjoy the rest of your lockdown.
Thank you. You too. Be safe.
So that was it. Yeah, I think she did. Again, I think she did really well. We're on a good streak. That's the third one we've done, and I think she did a really fantastic job.
She did, and she didn't really give stuff away, which is a temptation sometimes when you review a book, isn't it? Just to give away, like who did what, and you go, oh, sorry. That was quite funny though. She said, that one's a new one. I just read that. I remember that one. And the first thing she says is, I can't remember his name.
Anyway, well, thank you, Gemma.
Okay, looks like we're coming to the end then of our third podcast, Callum.
The third one, yes.
Yeah. Where can people find us? If they, I know it's Podbean we're on, isn't it, quite a lot of the time, but we're also across other platforms now.
Yeah, so you can find us on Podbean, you can find us on iTunes, you can find us on SoundCloud, and you can find us on the Exeter Library YouTube page. Yeah, I think we're going to go. Next week is growing up with the library, why the library is important to children.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I will catch you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week, Lee. Have a good one.
You have been listening to the Libraries Unlimited podcast. Thank you. Oh, before you go, just to remind you that every penny we raise goes directly towards library services that help make a difference to people's lives and communities. There are lots of ways you can support our charitable work, including going over to Just Giving. Also, when you shop at Amazon, you can use Amazon Smile to donate to our charity. Give As You Live is another way to do it, online, free and easy way to raise funds, simply by shopping online. To find out more details, please pop over to our website, which is devonlibraries.org.uk. Scroll down right to the bottom in the little black area where it says donate, click that button, and off you go. Cheers!